afternoon and welcome to CVM Live, the noon edition on CVM Television, online at cvmtv.com, and remember, you can download our CVM TV Smart app from the Google Play Store. I'm Whitney Levy. Following their three-day sick-out, teachers returned to the classrooms this morning across the island. The JTA was engaged in a protracted meeting at the Ministry of Labour, which CVM Live understands ended in the JTA agreeing to go back to the bargaining table. The teachers are protesting the government's payment package of 16% over 4 years. Opposition spokesman on finance and planning, Mark Golding, is criticizing the government for how they are handling negotiations with the public sector workers. CVM's Nicoy Wilson has this report.
The government's arrogance, really, in determining to pay retroactive amounts to categories of workers who are still consider themselves to be at the negotiating table, even if the government is not willing to negotiate with them. But no agreements have been concluded with those categories, and to be making payments to them on the basis of a one-sided determination of what they should be paid is not only arrogant, but is of questionable legality.
That was opposition spokesman on finance and planning Mark Golding while speaking at a post-budget presentation press briefing on Wednesday. He believes that a better offer can be made because of tax reform measures that have already borne fruit, citing the surplus amounts of tax collected for the 2017-2018 fiscal year. Mr. Golding also sought to justify the wage offer of 4% in year 1 and 3% in year 2 by the then People's National Party administration in 2015. According to Golding, they took a nuanced approach with those at the lower end of the salary scale being treated more favorably than those at the upper end.
It was appreciated that a 5%, say, of somebody who's earning $8,000 a week is $400. And the bottom end of the public sector workers in our offer back in 2015, the minimum they got was $1,000 a week. Now, with the way that this government has structured their offer, there will be many people who are getting less, an increase which is significantly less than that.
Mr. Golding also expressed concern about a number of issues, including the slowed growth of gross domestic product and the inability of the government to meet economic targets.
And we are concerned about this because we feel that the Jamaican economy, having been stabilized, having been restructured and reoriented towards competitiveness, and on a solid fiscal footing with our national debt coming down significantly, we ought to be seeing higher levels of growth.
Nicoy Wilson, CVM Live.
Members of the Public Administration and Appropriations Committee deliberated on the issue of the ongoing negotiations between public sector workers and the government, focusing on whether or not workers will be able to pursue further bargaining in spite of the pending March increase in members' salaries. CVM's Joel Crossgill has this report.
The meeting of the Public Administration and Appropriations Committee saw the issue of the ongoing negotiations between public sector workers and the government ventilated as it relates to the impending March payment of additional funds.
Though persons may not have signed on to accepting the payments, we are forced to pay you. It does not mean you are not at liberty to continue to negotiate, but we are forced to pay out as much as possible under that 9% of GDP as at March 31st, 2018, and then we take it from then.
Mrs. Holness's concerns were addressed by the Acting Financial Secretary from the Ministry of Finance and Public Service, Mrs. Darlene Morrison, who confirmed that the government's target of 9% of GDP for salaries of public sector workers was an influence on the negotiations.
In making the target for next year, if we do not pay this year the 17-18 amounts, it means we would need to push those retroactive payments beyond next year. Otherwise, we would not meet the target.
Mrs. Holness suggests that much of the backlash from public sector workers is as a result of miscommunication regarding the March payment.
As a committee, I also believe that we should make the point, as the FS is indicating, of the critical nature of meeting that 9%, because I got that a lot of the venom of persons was not understanding why they actually needed to be paid before the end of March this year. They genuinely didn't understand it. And so they took it as an insult to be forcing this payment down my throat. So as a committee, I would recommend that in addition to saying that your liberty is not being removed, we should remind of why it is that the payment is being made in this way.
Joel Crosskill, CVM Live.
With the CCTV surveillance cameras already installed in public spaces in Kingston, St. James, St. Anne, Clarendon and Manchester, the Ministry of National Security is now embarking on a collective approach to public safety and crime fighting. As Caroline Brown tells us, in addition to stakeholders and business persons, the public now has an opportunity to become part of a new Jamaica Eye network.
Many times, our security forces have been given basket to carry water. And that basket, I believe, is about 55 years old.
By his own admission, the Security Minister also revealed that even with an almost tripling of his portfolio ministry budget, the cost to expand technologically by implementing a national CCTV surveillance program would be a massive strain. The cost of a system comprising 3,000 cameras, the required number to cover Kingston alone, would rake up a cost of $45 million. That survey was enough for him and his team to resort to the true Jamaican style, Tonwihan. The outcome, the best workable private-public partnership for the Jamaica Eye to come into full view, he says.
We looked at the 6 towns that have cameras and decided to network them and then to create enough space to say to members of the public, patriotic Jamaicans, we will create space on the platform so your camera feed can be brought in.
With eyewitnesses becoming more scarce and less reliable, Jamaica Eye will be an important weapon zooming in on the multifaceted violent crimes crippling our communities. It will also enhance disaster response and public safety. These watchful eyes are expected to make criminal acts more difficult, with a bird's eye view of vandalism and general disrespect for law and order. Minister Montague says $181 million has been spent so far on the Jamaica Eye network system from his budget, and it's anticipated that the more persons participate, the better will be the impact for everyone.
Every activity in the control center will be recorded and therefore it can be audited. There is a rigorous audit regime because we want to protect the integrity of the Jamaica Eye. At the 5 monitoring centers, they can observe, but they cannot get into the system.
Caroline Brown, CVM Live.
State Minister in the Education Ministry, Floyd Green, says the ministry will be taking steps in ensuring that students on the program of advancement through health and education are able to access tertiary education once they qualify. The minister was speaking at the Jamaica Information Service think tank session recently, where he noted that some level of financial support has to be provided to ensure accessibility to higher level education.
As a ministry, we also have to take a much more broad-based approach to tertiary education. So part of what we've been looking at is the organization of our tertiary sector. How do we guarantee quality? How do we ensure that our tertiary sector is aligned to the productive needs of our nation? For us, it is the tertiary sector that really should move our country forward in relation to economic productivity, in relation to fulfilling the areas that there is a need for expertise.
The minister added that the education sector has been engaging tertiary partners in order to regulate and ensure that they unlock the full potential of students.
Quite frankly, we will have to align funds with areas in which there is a clear need in the country. And more importantly, that our students can leave tertiary education and be employed or go forward and establish their own form of employment. That for us is very important. And we have been saying to our tertiary institutions that they will have to know, have an assessment of every program that they offer and see how it ties in to the government priorities and to the government's growth agenda.
Residents of a St. Anne community are refusing to sit on their laurels and watch an elderly Jamaican man crumble like the dwelling he has occupied for years. The citizen, who lives alone and has health issues, has already lost his closest living family member.
Mr. Leaving, otherwise known as Shaky Bunny, we are in the situation now that he needs a proper infrastructure because the place he's living in is basically broken down and he has bad health condition. He has no one to really do what he's supposed to be done for him.
In other words, this man in his 60s is left to cope on his own. And believe it or not, despite a health condition which affects his motor skills and his speech, he fends for himself, chancing it at even cooking for years. Caring neighbors who remember the man they were told was born able-bodied until something happened in his early school years have always been looking out for him since his grandmother, whom he lived with, died years ago. The reality now is they are running out of options.
He's living in our Harrison Town and a hole for probably over 60 odd years. But since he's been there, now it's about 40 years or so, 35 to 40 years. The place that he's living in, everything, it's gone down beyond, right? And I've been trying overall to get help for him, but every time somebody come on board, I don't know what happened and they just leave out. So there's nothing, so I'm always left back with the situation.
The one sibling they've heard Bunny has is out of touch, so the community of Harrison Town, St. Anne, is hoping you will help them to afford Mr. Neath better living conditions. They say it doesn't have to be cash, but labor is welcomed. Caroline Brown, CVM Live.
This is News Live in 5, our main story recap and more. Good evening, I am Joel Crosskill. Orette Fisher has resigned as Director of Elections effective today. His resignation comes before a decision was made in the court matter between him and the Electoral Commission of Jamaica. In October of last year, Mr. Fisher filed an injunction against the Electoral Commission of Jamaica, barring them from removing him from the post, as he said his one-year appointment as election boss was unconstitutional. The judge was unable to immediately make a ruling after the February 26 hearing and upheld the injunction. When CVM Live reached out to Mr. Fisher's attorney, Hugh Wildman, he indicated that he was unaware of the resignation. CVM Live also reached out to nominated Commissioner Tom Tavares Finson, who said he was not able to comment on the matter as it is still before the courts. Orette Fisher first joined the organization more than 20 years ago. The Denham Town Police this morning made a major step in the ongoing effort in fighting crime, with a major ammunition find. They recovered over 1,270 rounds of ammunition. The lawmen were on another of their routine visits to Calvary Cemetery when they noticed 3 men acting in a suspicious manner. Upon the approach of the police, the men ran, leaving behind bags, which were later found to contain the illegal rounds. The cache included 132 12-gauge cartridges, 339 .38 cartridges, 859 .44 cartridges, 111 7.62, along with a holster and 4 magazines. Inspector of Police Marcia Blake is sending a message to criminal elements, insisting the police will remain resolute in their effort to rid the streets of these hoodlums.
Reassure the public that we are here as the police to give them confidence and to provide safety within the communities. And this fine, as you can all see, if you are to count each of these rounds, we want to say it's for one life. We want to tell them out there that we are here to do our work and we're going to do it well. And whatever you do out there, our eyes are on you. It doesn't matter how long you run for, you will be caught.
Restaurants of Jamaica has made a donation to the Education Ministry in securing access to food for needy Jamaican students. The donation, which is valued at $4.5 million, will be contributed towards the ministry's school feeding unit. CVM Live's Khadija Thomas has this report.
With 50% of our nation's children on the program of advancement through health and education path, the Education Minister, Senator Ruel Reid, welcomes the initiative, saying many of our children are dependent on the state for distribution of meals, but the ministry is still challenged.
Overall, just for primary and secondary, Minister Green, we would need $8 billion to feed, in our view, effectively that cohort, and we still need probably half of that for the early childhood sector, and you know, we're not quite anywhere there in terms of funding.
The donation was made through KFC Ad Hope initiative, where a total of 1,500 meals will be provided for the academic year ending in June 2018. Reid says this investment in early childhood education will redound to the overall quality of the education sector.
If we want equity and equal opportunity for all, it means therefore all our children will have to start right. Middle-class families are better able to care for their children, but the ones who are at the bottom, the most vulnerable, if the state doesn't intervene. I mean, saying this, agreeing that it's one thing to say, okay, well, persons are to take care of their children, but if they haven't had children and they're unable to take care of them, who then is going to take care?
Meanwhile, Marketing Director of Restaurants of Jamaica, Tina Matalon, says this is the beginning of what she hopes will make a difference in providing healthier foods and nutrition to students.
The beginning for us for a long relationship of supporting the National School Feeding Program, and also to bring a heightened awareness so that others, including our customer base, our partners, our friends, the rest of corporate Jamaica, to bring awareness to this serious and real problem that we face in Jamaica.
Khadija Thomas, CVM Live.
And that's News Live in 5. Stand by for sports with Wayne Walker.
Thank you very much, Joel. Welcome to Sports Live in 5. We start with news on football. Defending champions Tivoli Gardens, where they're into the semi-finals of the Jane Kasafa Jackie Bell knockout after beating the Super League outfit Rockford by 3-0 in the first quarter-final up at the Harborview Mini Stadium a short time ago. Now, Andre Moulton backed the brace inside 10 minutes, his first coming on minute number 5, his second on minute number 8. The Kingston College schoolboy Trayvon Reed scored the third with 6 minutes remaining in the game. The second quarterfinal is in progress with Premier League campaigners Harborview leading Bull Bay by 2-1 midway the second half. Nicholas Beckett and Kareem Manning are the scorers so far for Harborview, while Brian English scored for Bull Bay. Now, the last two quarterfinals will be played on Thursday at the same venue. In the first game at 5, the Bull Bay team will face Waterhouse, while at 7, Boys Town will take on Arnett Gardens. And of course, again, that's going on at the moment. It's Bull Bay against Harborview, so it's Brownstown against Waterhouse tomorrow and not Bull Bay. Former champions FC Barcelona and Bayern Munich wrapped up the last two quarterfinal tickets in the European Champions League on Wednesday with almost identical second leg round of 16 victories. The Catalans, with 2 Lionel Messi goals, saw off Chelsea by 3-0 at Camp Nou to advance 4-1 on aggregate. And of course, over in Turkey, Bayern Munich went over to Turkey and beat Besiktas by 3-1 to advance 8-1. Thiago Alcantara, Sandro, and an own goal did it for Bayern Munich, who won the first leg 5-0 in Munich a fortnight ago. World champions, the West Indies, lost by 8 runs to New Zealand in the first game of their T20 International Series. The game played on Wednesday over at Mount Manugui. The home team, they batted first and posted 167 for 6 on the back of 54 from Katie Martin, 49 from star player Susie Bates, and 36 from Amy Satterthwaite against Deandra Dotting, 2 for 23. In reply, the West Indies could only manage 159 for 6 thanks to half centuries from Hayley Matthews, 53, and captain Stefani Taylor, 51. But that wasn't enough, as Leigh Casperith, 3 for 35, and Sophie Devine, 2 for 27, bagged the most wickets. And the two-time world champions, the West Indies, will continue their quest for a place at next year's World Cup finals over in England. England when they face Afghanistan in the first Super 6 game at the ICC World Cup qualifiers in Zimbabwe. The game is set to be played at the Harare Sports Club, and it starts at 2:30 tomorrow morning Jamaica time. The West Indies won all 4 of their group games, while the Afghans, who are amongst the favourites to advance, they struggled in their group and finished 3rd. The Jamaica Rowing Federation are now the proud owners of 6 rowing machines, thanks to a contribution of $1.3 million from the Jamaica Olympic Association. The machines will assist the federation to prepare for the upcoming coaches camp, where 8 persons will be trained to certified level 1 standards. The funds will also affect repairs to the chase boat and the rowboat, along with the costs associated with Olympian John Parker, a world rowing expert coach, who will be conducting the training sessions here in Jamaica. And that pretty much does it for Sports Live in 5 at this time. Let's go for a break.